Hello, everybody. So this is Keneisha, and Keneisha is a current student in our program. She's from Kelowna, BC. And I actually don't know, have you decided where you're going for sure to school?
Yes, Ryerson University.
You accepted. Okay, so she accepted to Ryerson, so she'll be at Ryerson next year. And Keneisha currently is the student that has won the most in our program in terms of scholarships. She has won $153,000 in scholarships to date, which not all of it you can even accept, but that is how much she's won to date. And you're still going through that process, so you're still waiting to hear back from a lot of people. Your spreadsheet's kind of crazy because it's just like there's just like a lot of money on it. But yeah, so that's Keneisha. Keneisha, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. And I guess I'll start by going back to when you first came into the program, because I spoke to you originally when you came into the program, which was September. Is that right?
Yeah, around September.
September. Okay. So tell us a little bit about like before our phone call. So maybe back in the summer, like July, August, September, where were you at in terms of like the scholarship process and then also university application process as well?
Yeah, before starting the program, I didn't really know where to start. Like I knew of some of the bigger scholarships like the TD one and I knew I wanted to apply for that, but apart from that, I didn't know where to start. I'd looked on some scholarship search engines and I'd seen some, but a lot of them were contests and a lot of them were repeated and I wasn't finding the deeper ones that GrantMe has showed me as I joined the program.
Right. Right. Awesome. Yeah. And I think that's probably a common thing for a lot of students heading into grade 12 is they kind of start to do that research around that time, and then they look online, and like you mentioned it, there's a lot of like contests or scams or like just things that aren't really real scholarships based on merit. And for you, merit scholarships were very important because you have the great resume to be the type of student that can win those scholarships that are really based on merit. And so okay, so then we had our call, and you came into the program, which is awesome. And so what did the journey look like for you, like throughout this year, to really get to where you're at now, which obviously $153,000 is a lot of money. Your entire education is paid for, which is crazy. Your face says it. Like it's still crazy for you probably to process it. But what was that journey like for you throughout grade 12?
I was really fortunate when I started, in our first call showing you my resume, I had a lot of experiences. And
Mhm.
so I think a big learning thing for me was how to fine tune those experiences and how to present them in the best way. And kind of learning that I don't need to put everything into one essay and try to summarize everything that I've done, but just group them together into categories and really express the ones that have been most meaningful to me and meaningful to the community around me.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's like a really, I would say like a common misconception with scholarships is that you should list everything that, you have like, if you have like 10 or 15 things that you've done that have been like, to you, they've been very impactful, right? But I think a common misconception is that students have the tendency to want to just like list out everything, but without actually like diving into the detail of what they had actually done and using, something like the star structure or something to actually structure your achievements in a way where you can actually focus on like what was the action and like what was the impact that you actually had. And I think that's something that you've done a really good job of, especially like throughout the year, is like you went from, yeah, maybe including a lot of different things to really like really clearly articulating what you did and then what your impact was and narrowing your focus down a lot, which I think was um, a really big thing. And I think that that's something that students generally have a problem with, is I think list everything and then cross your fingers, but it really is narrowing your focus down. So that's huge. Okay, awesome. And then in terms of like the level of commitment and like your work ethic to actually, because we just had a conversation before this about how you were like completely on top of like doing every application that you had. Like I still don't think there's really an application that you missed in terms of like the scholarships
mhm.
that we gave you. Like you didn't miss one. That's crazy, right? Because it's a lot of applications and obviously it paid off. But how did you keep yourself like organized? Because you're also very busy. every student that's a
Mhm.
good scholarship candidate is going to be busy, right? So how did you keep yourself organized throughout the process, throughout the year?
I think a big thing for me was knowing myself and knowing that I would probably procrastinate and do it like the night before. So I knew going into it, I really wanted to be organized and plan everything out. So I had a document and I listed out all of the deadlines, and I knew when they were coming up. So at the beginning of the month, I would start working on everything due that month. I would know that I'd need to submit it to GrantMe at least a week before the deadline. And I really did my best to submit everything early. So really taking that structured approach and making sure I knew all the deadlines and I was consistently making time well ahead of those deadlines.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like, how important would you say like the organization is going through the process? Like, is it a critical piece of it?
I think definitely if you are doing the essays, right before they're due, you're gonna experience a lot of stress first of all, and it's not gonna be a good experience for you. And then also the essays aren't gonna be where they could be if you're in a calmer state of mind and you're able to really reflect and put all of those details in. So I think that organization is very important to making sure that you're putting your best foot forward in these applications.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I think organization is like a really big piece of it, and like you really emulate like what it means to stay organized throughout the process, because you literally, like I said, didn't miss an application. And um the other piece of it that, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit, but like there's organization and there's consistency, right? So like taking consistent actions, with this idea that like your work and your progress over the year is actually cumulative, right? So it's not like a job where you go and you get paid the same amount every time. It's like your every application that you did was building on top of another, right? And you were
Mm-hmm.
getting better and better, and it's really like a cumulative effect, and which is different than like, you know, a part-time job or something like that. And so in terms of like consistency, like how important did you see it in terms of like supporting you with your applications, like taking consistent action throughout the year?
Yeah, I think a big thing I did is I created a master sheet is what I called it. So
Mm,
basically I would have a paragraph, okay, this is about this one involvement. And I'm like, oh, I really like that line, so I'm gonna use it for another. I'm really recycling those pieces. So I was making sure that, I was always putting the best phrasing that I could in there. And you're right, that really became building off of it. And I was always improving those paragraphs as I reused them. And
yeah, totally. And by the end, I feel like looking at your applications, like you were able to reuse and recycle so much material that by the end, I mean, I think there was some where we were just like, this is great, like no changes really needed, because like it's something we had already seen, right? And that, like I said, you had been building on throughout throughout the year, which is amazing. Okay, and then two more questions. So the first one is like, what advice, like if you had like one or two pieces of advice that you'd give to younger students who maybe haven't started the scholarship process yet, but are in, grade 9, 10, or 11, and are thinking about like, how can I really become a really good scholarship candidate? Like what advice would you give to them, for them to kind of get started on that journey?
I think a big piece of advice is it's not always the best idea to do what you think you should be doing. Like, especially as I've been meeting more students, I'm comparing myself. I'm like, I'm not in an IB program. I'm not taking a bunch of AP courses. I'm not doing like Model UN and a lot of these things that, we kind of see as the top thing. So you don't always have to follow that path. And I think what I really did instead was following my passion and what was really meaningful to me. So identifying problems in my community and working towards fixing them, saying yes to a lot of opportunities. Because definitely when I look back in grade 9, I didn't really see myself as this type of person that was super involved. But all I really did was say yes to the opportunities that came towards me, and then slowly building on them, and then eventually creating new opportunities and taking the charge and initiative. Um, so yeah, and I think another big thing is collaborating with other people, because I think that's a lot of things that scholarships are looking for, is that you're not working alone. You're truly being a leader. You're involving people, and bringing people together.
Yeah, and there's nobody that's done a better job of you than that in terms of like the diversity of your involvement. Like it's really like it's very well rounded in terms of the different things that you're involved in. And I think a big part of that is, like you said, you say yes to a lot of opportunities. And I think that's really incredible because it gives you like an open mind, right? Like let's say yes and then see what happens, and taking everything as like a learning experience and also an opportunity to make an impact on other people. And like you said, taking a leadership role and really saying, I'm not going to do this on my own, but like, who can I enroll in like the possibility that I see for this project, which is like very powerful, right? Because then also it's not on you, like just even in terms of time, it's not on you by yourself to execute on the vision that you have, because you have other people that are there to support you. And that really ends up saving you a lot of time as well. And it allows you to make your impact even broader than it maybe would have been otherwise. So I think that's huge. Awesome. Okay, that's great. That's like great advice. Awesome. Okay, and then the last question is, how has the program supported you with this journey? Like, what are the biggest takeaways from the program that have really helped you kind of navigate through this process?
I think initially one of the biggest benefits was finding those scholarships, especially some of the national ones or some of the ones that are like based out of Toronto, is not something that I would have found easily by myself. It would have taken me a lot of time on the internet trying to decipher through these different search engines and different websites. So that was really a big time saver. Another one was the editing. Of course, I know if I didn't have GrantMe, I'd probably be trying to go to like my English teachers and things like that. But I did a lot of applications, so it would have been a lot to ask of someone like an English teacher. As well, my English teachers would have been, they know who I am and they kind of believe in my potentials. So they'd be like, why wouldn't they give the scholarship to me? Whereas with GrantMe, they understand what they're looking for and they obviously believe in me, but they're being objective about it and they want to see me improve my application, which is like something I think a personal relationship with an English teacher might have not fully achieved.
Right.
And I think the last big piece was help with interviews. So before entering this program, I'd done one interview, which lasted 10 minutes for a job at McDonald's. So, I didn't have very much experience with that. And I know interviews I thought before, were like question and answer, very strict. But realizing through this program and through the mentorship on interviews, how you're really trying to create a conversation and create a meaningful connection between you and the interviewer. And so I know I've had quite a few interviews for scholarships this year, and that's been truly helpful.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. That's like that. Yeah, that's amazing to hear you say. And holy moly, you have improved like with your interviews. I mean, obviously I didn't sit in on the interviews, but it seems like your approach and like the holistic approach that you're now taking versus what you said, which is like the Q&A. Even our conversation right now, like you can just see you're relaxed and it's just like free flowing. And it's like really amazing to see, because for you, that was a critical piece of this, because you were, based on the amazing applications you wrote, you were up for a whole bunch of really highly competitive scholarships. And so you had a whole bunch of interviews. And, I think that's going to serve you. I mean, I think everything that you've done this year, like your achievements in general, like it's going to serve you in such a really, like a huge way, right? Because really the world is your oyster now. I guess that's actually one more question I have is like, what does this open up for you? Like you now, you have your education paid for. You know where you're going to school, and you can really, instead of making a decision about how it's going to go for you based on circumstances, you're now in the position to actually have choice and complete choice and freedom about what it looks like for you. And so what does that open up for you now?
Definitely, it means that I can afford to shoot big, right? I don't have to feel like I have to stay at home where I can live rent free, and I can really expand and be like, yeah, I'm gonna move across the country to go to school, and I'm gonna have time in university to be able to explore different opportunities instead of constantly being worried about how I'm gonna actually make it realistic. I really get to have opportunity, which means so much to me.
Yeah. And to me, all I see is like, she has all this opportunity. What impact is she going to make next? Like, what is she going to do next? Because like you said, it's just like, you don't have to think about the financial stuff, and you're actually in the position now where you can just have whatever impact you want in the world. And your impact is already so massive on like literally everybody around you, on your community, on like your city, on the province, on the country. And like, now you just are in this position to have whatever impact you want. And I just like, I'm so excited to see where that leads you and like what happens for you, because I just think you're going to do incredible things. It's going to be really crazy for me in 4 years to be like, what did Keneisha do? Like, what did she do? And it's going to be, I know it's going to be really, really amazing and really impactful. So, okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Keneisha, for taking the time to do this. I think you gave so much valuable information for students that are looking to apply for scholarships, but also students that are younger and maybe are thinking about how do I become the type of student that can have success with scholarships. You really are an incredible student and person, and really just like a pleasure to have in our program. And we're so excited for you. So I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what other scholarships you're going to
win. Thank you.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.